A devil can be understood as a name for us to distinguish them as non-human. Devils also have good devils and bad devils, not necessarily evil and wicked. We will have a more interesting view of good and evil. A beautiful friendship that lasts for centuries between two opposing sides of angels and devils. The story revolves around an angel and a devil on earth. They secretly became good friends for more than 6,000 years. They first met when the earth was covered with deserts. There was only the Garden of Eden created by God with many trees. God created the first human being, Adam. The devil Crowley transformed into a giant cobra to tempt Adam to eat the apple in the Garden of Eden. As a result, Adam was banished to earth with Eve. The angel Aziraphale secretly gave his flaming sword to Eve with the reason that Eve was pregnant. At first, the angel Aziraphale came from a good intention. Aziraphale sympathized with the situation of Adam and Eve, but then he was afraid of being discovered by God. Although the positions of gods and demons were not the same, they both contributed to the birth of the world, so the friendship of the two also began from this moment. Many years later, at a cemetery, two demons were waiting for an important person. Demon Crowley appeared. The two demons gave Crowley a basket. Crowley did not expect that the incident would come so quickly. He reluctantly licked his fingers and signed the receipt. In that basket was the child of the Lord of Hell. Angel Aziraphale was in Japan eating sushi when a teammate informed him that Demon Crowley had come to Earth. Aziraphale, prepare for what is about to happen. It is strange that in that era, pregnant women preferred to choose monasteries as their place of birth instead of hospitals. So the Satans planned to create virtual monasteries with fake nuns because Satan was planning to welcome the birth of the son of the Lord of Hell. According to the schedule, the diplomat's wife Thaddeus was due to give birth today, but that night, another pregnant woman appeared. Their appointment was supposed to be the next day. The nuns had to let Mrs. Thaddeus give birth in room 4, while the other woman gave birth in room 3. Mr. Thaddeus was discussing something with the president, so he had to let his wife give birth alone. Meanwhile, the husband of the other pregnant woman really wanted to go into the delivery room with his wife, but he was stopped by the nuns and chased out. The husband was standing at the door watching his wife when he saw the devil Crowley carrying a basket. He thought Crowley was a doctor, so he directed Crowley to room 3. After that, both women gave birth to 2 babies with blonde hair. Crowley gave the basket to a nun and asked her to take the baby to room 3. The nun received the basket with respect and pride. She did not expect to hold the child of the Lord of Hell in her arms. Then the nun brought the child of the Lord of Hell into room number 3. There were 2 children in the room. The 2 nuns looked at each other. It seemed that they understood that they had to make a move to acknowledge the birth of the child of the Lord of Hell. She pushed the child of the normal mother into the room and handed it to Mrs. Thaddeus. After Mrs. Thaddeus regained consciousness, she held her son in her arms and named him Warlock. With the advice of the nuns, the husband of the normal mother named their child Adam. Finally, the birth of the demon's child was successful. The nuns were relieved and took the remaining child away to hide. After 24 hours of rest, the mothers were discharged from the hospital. Before the nuns could receive their reward, the archives were burned by 2 demons. Crowley did not know anything about this because he was busy convincing his angel friend. When the boy is 11 years old, he will cause all humans to die, also known as the end of the world. So the angel and the demon teamed up to become Warlock's godfather. Aziraphale believed that even though he was evil by nature, if he was taught the right things, he would become a good person. Aziraphale disguised himself as a gardener to infiltrate Thaddeus's house to supervise Warlock's growth. The demon Crowley pretended to be a nanny and read bedtime stories to the boy every night. However, Crowley advised the boy to put everything under his feet. This was considered an extremely important task that the supreme beings on both sides expected. Hell only needed Crowley to turn the boy evil, and the angels hoped that Aziraphale could teach the boy to be good. Only then could they prevent war from breaking out. Many years had passed. According to a prophecy from a witch in the past, when the son of the Lord of Hell turned 11, the hellhounds would be released to find their master. At that time, to control the situation, the angel had to kill the son of the Lord of Hell to save the universe. Aziraphale was gentle in nature, so when he heard about killing, he immediately became worried. But Crowley used the argument that it was better to kill one person to save 10,000 to convince Aziraphale. Perhaps he could not refuse this mission. The day of Warlock's 11th birthday came. Aziraphale and Crowley drove to Thaddeus's house to prevent the Hell Dog from meeting Warlock. Coincidentally, that day was also the 11th birthday of little Adam. While Adam's parents were celebrating his birthday at home, Adam and his friends went into the forest to play as usual. The Hell Dog smelled its owner's hunter's scent and immediately ran to the forest. It stood watching Adam for a while. The boy immediately wished to raise a cute little dog. Unexpectedly, the wish was granted to the hell dog. It transformed into a little dog and ran to Adam's side. From then on, it became Adam's pet. The moment Adam named the dog, it meant that he had accepted his identity. Aziraphale and Crowley waited for a while, but they did not see the hellhound appear. They even thought that the hellhound did not know the way here. The joy did not last long when they received news that the 4 horsemen had returned victorious. That meant that the hellhound had found the boy. It was time for everyone to face war. The hellish administration suggested that the Thaddeus family fly to the Middle East. They arranged for the 4 horsemen to hide under many different identities. The purpose was to incite humanity to war. Originally, the king of the Middle East and the president of the United States were preparing to sign a peace treaty. In the end, the result was a massacre. Back to 360 years ago. At that time, the woman Ednis had many achievements in curing diseases and helping people, but she was considered a witch. The villagers went with the witch hunters to her house. However, Ednis did not need anyone to force her to go to the execution ground. The moment Ednis stood on the execution stake, she asked the soldiers to stand close to listen to her reveal a secret. When the fire broke out, everyone was blown to pieces. She even predicted her own death. So before that, she used a lot of bombs to take revenge on the hunters and the imperial soldiers. When she died, the only property she left behind was a book containing thousands of accurate prophecies. One of them said that in the future, an incomplete apple would appear in the world. Store it to solve the economic problem. Her descendants listened to that and immediately bought a lot of Apple stocks. Indeed, they became super billionaires for many generations. In the year of triumph, there was another prophecy about the end of the world. The witch's descendant, Anathema, wanted to verify this, so she set out to find out about the prophecy in the book. Meanwhile, Lucifer was unemployed many times. He was so unlucky that wherever he went, he ruined his work. On the way back, he was attracted by a street man. After a while of talking, he was recruited directly to be a hunter for the witch hunting academy. As soon as the devil and the angel discovered that the son of the Lord of Hell was really lost, the two of them hurried back to the old monastery to inquire. After 11 years, this place had become a place for paintball. Aziraphale was shot by a soldier. His white outfit was dirty. Crowley immediately showed his devilish face, scaring the soldier into fainting. After the two of them met the nun again, they learned that the old archive had been burned to ashes, so all clues about the son of the current Lord of Hell were zero. At this time, Anathema searched for the Book of Prophecy and found the son of the real Lord of Hell. She moved to be Adam's neighbor. Day and night, she monitored the boy's every move. Unfortunately, that night, Anathema was hit by a car. The people in the car were 2 angels and a demon. The angel helped the witch heal her wound, and then he took her home. The witch was very scared because it was her first time traveling with a stranger, so she dropped the book in the car. The angel soon discovered the book, but he did not tell the demon. He secretly hid it and brought it back to the bookstore to read alone. Aziraphale turned it to the page with the prophecy that when the angel read this book, everything would start to count. Since the cup of cocoa was cold, Aziraphale looked at the cup of cocoa next to him and was really panicked. He spent the whole night reading the book from beginning to end. Then he connected the numbers 666 mentioned. Aziraphale recklessly picked up the phone and dialed. On the other side, the people who answered were Adam's parents. Now let's go back in time to see how far the relationship between Aziraphale and Crowley reached. Even though Aziraphale knew the whereabouts of the son of the Lord of Hell, he still hid it. Aziraphale did not want to reveal it to Crowley. Thousands of years ago, the two of them had witnessed the end of the world together. When humans migrated onto Noah's Ark, they even witnessed the Supreme Being crucified on a cross. Many years passed, and they accidentally met again while drinking. It was truly an unavoidable, painful relationship. One was in heaven, and the other was in hell. Every few hundred years, they would meet again. However, when Aziraphale was at his most critical, he went to a restaurant. He forgot to bring money, so he was imprisoned. It was Crowley who appeared and rescued Aziraphale. After thousands of years, Crowley suddenly proposed the idea of becoming best friend with Aziraphale. However, angels and demons are 2 different poles of yin and yang. Moreover, when other angels knew about it, they would definitely not let it go easily, so Aziraphale chose to refuse. But Crowley was still enthusiastic and volunteered to accompany Aziraphale on every journey. Returning to the present, when Aziraphale discovered that the son of the Lord of Hell had been swapped, he quickly returned to inform inform the angels. Aziraphale was ordered to find out the whereabouts of the son of the Lord of Hell at all costs. Aziraphale called the witch-hunting sergeant to help him find the address of the other phone number. He hoped to soon know the way to the house where the cranked son of the Lord of Hell was. At this moment, Crowley was also under pressure from Hell. They asked why he had not yet found the whereabouts of his master. Crowley was afraid of being punished, so he kept calling Aziraphale to ask for information. However, Aziraphale chose to avoid this matter. He said that he did not know anything. The closer the apocalypse got, the more Adam began to have uncontrollable thoughts. While he was constantly haunted by aliens, aliens suddenly appeared on Earth. Adam dreamed of a sea monster, then the sea monster woke up after a long sleep. It even destroyed many ships on the sea. Because the witch Anathema lost the book of prophecy, she did not know that Adam was the son of the Lord of Hell. Anathema was lucky to possess yin and yang eyes, so she had the ability to see evil spirits. However, when Anathema came into contact with Adam, she did not feel anything. She only saw him as a good boy. So Anathema invited Adam to her house to play. The hellhound followed Adam to the front door of Anathema's house, but it suddenly stopped. It turned out that it saw horse blood to exorcise evil spirits, so it did not dare to go inside. Adam still acted normal, as if nothing had happened. Was he really good, or was the power inside him too great? Seeing Adam being obedient and polite, Anathema gave him a few magazines. Unexpectedly, the content in them stimulated Adam's hidden power to explode. Adam believed that nuclear power was the cause of environmental pollution, so he hoped that such things would never happen again. Indeed, the nuclear power at the station continued to decrease until it was zero, but strangely, the amount of electricity produced was more than before. When the staff came to check, they found that the giant nuclear storage tank was empty. Inside was only one candy, the type Adam really liked to eat. Many mysterious events continuously appeared, proving that Adam's power was not ordinary. At this time, Adam's address was found. Witch hunter Sergeant Saul carefully handed over the weapon to Punisher. Saul instructed Punisher to complete the task of supervising the son of the Lord of Hell. Punisher was driving on the road when suddenly a hole fell into the middle of the road, causing the car to flip over. It turned out that the hole was dug by two people. In Adam's imagination, he and his friends were playing nearby when they discovered that someone had an accident and immediately went to help. Because Adam did not know the true identity of the witch Anathema, he immediately brought Punisher to ask for her help. Adam accidentally saw the picture of Satan hanging on the wall. The haunting voice kept ringing in Adam's ears, making his mind confused. Since then, Adam knew that his destiny was to bring suffering to humanity. The Lord of Hell sent his subordinates to look for his son everywhere. Duke Hastu of Hell accepted the mission. He immediately went to see the Thaddeus family and claimed to be an acquaintance. However, Hastu's appearance made them feel very bad. Warlock said that Hastu smelled like feces. Hastu had been a demon for thousands of years, but a duke like him had never suffered such bitterness. Hastu immediately used a loud voice to scold Crowley for teaching his master like this. Crowley sat still. He was also wronged. Crowley had no choice but to confess that Warlock was not their master. Crowley knew that revealing this would definitely not be good, so he immediately prepared his defense. Crowley sensed that the son of the Lord of Hell had awakened, so he ran to find Aziraphale. Crowley advised Aziraphale that they should run away together, because nothing could stop this power. However, Aziraphale once again refused Crowley because he wanted to stop this war himself. The two had a big argument, and then went their separate ways. Crowley had no choice but to think of a way to save him. He sat upright at home and waited for what would happen. As soon as Hastu appeared with a demon, the water tank on the door quickly collapsed on his head, causing the demon to evaporate in an instant. It was definitely holy water. Its destructive power to the son of the Lord of Hell was stronger than human acid. Hastu was afraid of this, so he did not dare to act. Crowley had a bottle of holy water in his hand, enough to kill Hastu on the spot. Crowley warned that if Hastu dared to come closer, he would act at any time. Hastu hesitated for a moment, then he caught the moment a drop of water from the gun barrel fell into Crowley's hand. Hastu knew he was tricked, so he immediately attacked Crowley. Just as Crowley was discovered, Aziraphale called. Aziraphale wanted to tell Crowley about the address of the son of the Lord of Hell, but Crowley hung up because he didn't want the whole hell to know that he was friends with an angel. In a moment of panic, Crowley immediately transformed and hid in the phone system. Hastu immediately chased Crowley and was locked in Crowley's recording tape forever. Aziraphale couldn't contact Crowley, so he also felt uneasy. On the way to find Crowley, Aziraphale was unexpectedly caught by the group of angels. It turned out that this was not an accident. They had planned it all along. Aziraphale's cooperation with the devil, Crowley, was exposed. They thought Aziraphale was a traitor who had tarnished the title of angel, so they rushed to beat him up. When Punisher woke up in the anathema witch house, he showed her the home address of the son of the Lord of Hell that the sergeant had given him. She was extremely surprised to know that the son of the devil who would destroy humanity was Adam. It was hard to believe because the boy was so cute. However, the cute boy she thought was now different. Adam invited the children to play the apocalypse game in the forest. The storm began to come, making the children scared and want to go home. Adam declared that he would create new parents for them. His feet lifted off the ground, and his eyes turned blood red. He even used magic to cover his friends' mouths. Thunder and lightning appeared everywhere. Witches and hunters went to find Adam, but they were also stopped by the hurricane. Facing the storm, the two decided to run into the house to find a safe hiding place. When the storm passed, they would carry out their noble mission to protect the earth. At this time, Punisher was scared and kept praying. Anathema decided to do the most noble and meaningful thing. The two exchanged a passionate kiss and had a lovemaking session together. At the hunter base, Sergeant Saul discovers that the map marking Adam's house's location has suddenly caught fire. He predicted something bad. He truly regretted sending his staff to their deaths. Aziraphale thought it was time to inform the heavens that the situation on Earth was extremely dangerous. He entered the bookstore he owned and created a barrier circle. Then he stood beside it and prayed sincerely. The light of the circle appeared, along with the head of a man. That man claimed to be God's secretary, and Aziraphale explained that he had let the son of the Lord of Hell activate his power. But he believed that they could stop the war without harming anyone. What he said was probably true, but it was not enough, because God's purpose was not to stop the war, but to defeat that demon. The explosion of the nuclear power plant would be a reasonable opening for this war. Unexpectedly, outside, Sergeant Hastu was eavesdropping on the conversation between Aziraphale and God. But since Hastu only heard half of it, he thought Aziraphale was the devil. Sergeant Saul used a lighter to push Aziraphale into the circle and chanted an exorcism spell. Unexpectedly, this spell also worked on the angel. Aziraphale immediately flew up to the sky and disappeared. Saul thought he had successfully destroyed the devil, so he happily left the scene. Saul accidentally knocked over the candle, burning down Aziraphale's bookstore. When Crowley drove to the bookstore to find Aziraphale, there was a big fire inside. Crowley thought his best friend had died, so he was extremely sad, but in fact, Aziraphale's soul had flown to heaven. Aziraphale was extremely ashamed when facing the archangel. Even his body was burned. When he mentioned fire, he immediately remembered that Aziraphale had been given a sword. He learned that Aziraphale had lost it, so he scolded Aziraphale. He asked Aziraphale to join the fight, but Aziraphale did not agree. Moreover, Aziraphale no longer had a body, so he could not return to the mortal world. The other angels did not care about Aziraphale. Reluctantly, Aziraphale chose to temporarily take refuge by entering the human globe. Then Aziraphale will go to Crowley for help. Aziraphale heard that the bookstore was burned down, and he was disappointed. He felt sorry for the witch's prophecy book. However, now the book is in Crowley's hands. Crowley also took the initiative to help Aziraphale find a new body. Crowley is called a devil, but he has better actions than those called angels. Aziraphale went to find Saul and saw Saul's lover. Suddenly, he got along with her. Because she was a fortune teller, Aziraphale possessed her soul and borrowed her body to save the world. This motorbike was too slow, so Aziraphale was afraid that he wouldn't be able to catch up with the speed of the demons. Aziraphale had to use magic and ride in the sky. Adam had just gained a little power and showed it off to his friends. Adam said that while his friends were still eating cakes and drinking milk tea, he was already the Devil King. Adam continued to talk about his plan to destroy humanity while his friends sat there. He persuaded them to listen. However, at this point, the children were fed up with Adam's threats. They asked to stop playing with him and left. Although Adam had strength and power, no one respected him. That made his strength meaningless. The dog didn't even want to play with him. This was Adam's sadness. When Adam begged them to come back, they chased him away. Adam flew up in anger. He emitted a stream of air and fell to the ground. When he woke up, his eyes were back to normal. normal. This was the friendly Adam they used to know. On Crawley's way to the military base, he coincidentally encountered a traffic jam. Suddenly, Crawley remembered that many years ago, when this road was under construction, he secretly changed the flags to be different from the design. He did this to make fun of people's pain in traffic jams. Little did he know that many years later, he would suffer the consequences of his foolish game. A female operator called Crawley to ask for a debt. Taking advantage of that opportunity, Hastu transformed into a pile of maggots that crawled out of the phone on the other side. After Hastu regained his freedom, he immediately went to Crawley to take revenge. If Crawley refused to come back and confess, Hastu would have the right to destroy him immediately. Hastu created a ring of magical fire burning around London. Crawley did not give up. He just drove his car into the sea of fire. Finally, Crawley set Hastu on fire. Anathema and Punisher made love, and then they remembered their mission. One of the prophecies said that the airport would be the place where the war would start. The two immediately set off to help stop the destruction of the son of the Lord of Hell. Hell was also sending 4 horsemen to the airport. Because Adam wanted to make amends with his friends, he also wanted to stop this war. The children saw this and agreed to help Adam. They were riding their bikes to the airport. When a neighbor saw them, he pointed at Herwin Hall. Each of them, especially the leader, he said that he would definitely tell their parents to teach them a lesson. Next to the airport, there was a military base. It held many important things that had an influence on humanity. That was why the demons chose this place to challenge. The first to arrive were the 4 horsemen of hell. They infiltrated the server system. This incident left the computer room staff bewildered and not understanding what was happening. The Grim Reaper only looked at them with one look, and they had solved everything. Then, they manipulated the entire system to activate the missile launch. Then, they opened the valve to release radioactive substances into the environment. The armies of other countries received the alarm signal and immediately entered defense mode. Countries sent out emergency signals. It seemed that the plan to provoke war so that humanity could kill each other had succeeded in the first step. The second step would be the war between angels and demons. At this time, all those who knew about the war rushed to the military base. The guards at the gate outside saw Adam and quickly chased him away. As a result, Adam knocked him out with magic. Next, Crowley drove a fire-armored car with a very cool appearance. Crawley recognized Adam. Crawley knew that Adam had good intentions and wanted to help people, so he found a way to get the children inside. Crawley turned around and saw that the car that had accompanied him for more than 1,000 years was on fire. Crawley took a minute to say goodbye to his beloved car. At this moment, all the factions were present, including the 4 horsemen, Crowley, Aziraphale, Anathema, and 2 witch hunters. Of course, the important and key character of this war was Adam. Adam was the son of the devil. Aziraphale saw the target. Crowley urged Aziraphale to use his gun to destroy Adam. However, because Aziraphale couldn't bear to do it, he raised his gun and shot into the sky. Seeing this, Adam repaid Aziraphale by asking Aziraphale to leave the fortune-teller's body. Aziraphale tried to do so and discovered that he had returned to his own body. It turned out that in addition to the ability to destroy, Adam could also heal and recreate everything. Crawley saw that it was no longer necessary, so he returned the book of prophecy to Anathema. Suddenly, a piece of paper floated in the air. Aziraphale quickly picked it up and put it in his pocket. The 4 horsemen saw that Adam was close to the angel, so they thought he was a traitor. They pulled out their flaming swords and threatened Adam that if he did not quickly destroy the earth, they would harm his friends. Although Adam was the son of Satan, he did not want to become a great evil with the reputation of being a genocider of humanity. So he told his friends that the 4 horsemen were not real. They were created from human fear. Adam's friends only needed to be determined, and they would be able to defeat them. One of Adam's friends suddenly appeared before them. She said she believed in peace. The female knight was instantly reduced to ashes. The rest of Adam's friends also began to speak up their righteous opinions. The dog also contributed a tooth mark to the war between the 2 worlds. However, now only the god of death has not been destroyed, so he took this opportunity to spread his wings and flee to hell. Everyone thought that everything was over, but suddenly a lightning bolt struck them. Representatives of heaven and hell appeared with a desire for war. They wanted to use this war to determine the winner and unify the 3 realms of human existence. Because Adam refused, the messenger of hell decided to tell this story to Adam's father. At that moment, the ground began to shake. Crawley felt a strong pressure and a heavy evil aura. It was the majesty of the blood of the Lord of Hell. Satan was about to appear in the human human world. Aziraphale could not wait any longer, so he said something that made Crowley extremely heartbroken. If Crowley did not think of a way quickly, Aziraphale would never talk to him again. This threat really worked on Crowley. Crowley used his power to stop time and create a virtual space to talk to Adam privately. They used this last moment to remind Adam that as long as he decided not to start Satan's war, no one could force him. Adam was now the incarnation of man. Everything in reality obeyed his command. Then the two of them brought Adam back to reality. At this moment, a red hand rose from the ground, along with the flames of hell. Satan had truly appeared. He was extremely angry because his son refused to listen to him. Then Santa used a very majestic voice to call Adam closer. Adam denied that Santa was his father. No father would wait until his son was 11 years old to meet him. The more Adam spoke, the angrier he made Santa. Not only was Adam not afraid, but he also affirmed once again that Santa was not his father. Santa was angry, so he decided to destroy this place. But this place is Adam's territory. Adam alone can fight against Santa. Adam only needs to deny it once, and Satan will disappear. Arthur, the father who has taken care of Adam for the past 11 years, appears. Arthur is extremely worried because he heard from the neighbor that Adam went to the military base to cause trouble. Arthur comforts Adam that it's okay. Everything is here with his father. Adam's power helps the dead to live again. Destroyed things are also restored to their original state. Finally, the Punisher Hunter resolves the grudge from his ancestors. He becomes happy with the witch anathema. The world is peaceful, but it's Crowley and Aziraphale's turn to meet with disaster. Because of preventing the war, both heaven and hell are very angry. They decide to punish the two destroyers properly. Thanks to the prophecy and the piece of paper that fell from the book, Crowley and Aziraphale know the outcome they will receive. Aziraphale was taken to heaven to be punished for betraying the organization. The archangel created a hellfire and forced Aziraphale to destroy both body and soul. Crowley was also escorted to hell to be punished. The messenger of hell filled the bathtub with holy water and then threw a hellish pet in to prove his power. As long as Crowley stepped in, his result would certainly be no different from that animal. While the demons standing nearby were afraid of the holy water, Crowley calmly stepped in. He soaked in the cool water with a look of great enjoyment. Aziraphale immersed himself in the hellfire. Not only was he not burned, he even breathed fire. It turned out that knowing the truth in advance was also extremely beneficial, because the one bathing in the holy water was Aziraphale, and the one being burned was the devil. Crowley, the messenger of hell, and the angel saw that they could not do anything to Aziraphale and Crowley, so they were helpless to release them. Crowley and Aziraphale returned to the park they have known for thousands of years. The two exchange soul and body again. This world is a mixture of truth and falsehood. Good and evil are both created by us. Crowley was about to kill the sheep when suddenly an angel appeared. In the name of God, he asked Crowley to stop because the sheep were originally the property of a farmer named Jork. However, Crowley said that he did this on orders from God. Crowley even had a license to verify. Aziraphale was quite surprised by this crazy mission. When Aziraphale was off guard, Crowley immediately destroyed the entire flock of sheep of the farmer. Because of this, Aziraphale was extremely dissatisfied. Aziraphale brought the license back to show the other angels to verify. Through God's fingerprints, it was true. According to what was said in the license, there was a bet between God and Satan. Because Jork was too good, Satan thought that Jork was good because he received love and help from God. However, God was the opposite. He bet that even if Jork didn't get help, Jork would still be a good and honest person. To prove it, God allowed Satan to destroy everything Jork had, including all his material possessions, including his children. If Jork still maintained his original goodness, God would reward him twice what he had before he died, including his children, who would also be doubled in number. However, the children who were previously destroyed would not be revived. Because of this, Aziraphale went to see Gabriel, the high archangel, to express his opinion. Jork and his wife would only like their old children. It was not the angel's job to kill people. Gabriel believed that hell would have its own way of doing things as long as the angels didn't interfere. Years passed, and Aziraphale came to Earth and became a bookstore owner. The space here was empty, so Aziraphale let Maggie rent a room upstairs. Her job was to sell music records. Because of the technological age, no one likes listening to records anymore. So, her business also became sluggish. One day, Aziraphale saw her crying and found out that she did not have enough money to pay the rent. Seeing that, Aziraphale decided to give her the remaining 8 months of rent. The girl was extremely grateful for his kindness to her. That day, the whole neighborhood was noisy because a naked man was walking around with a box in his hand. He chose to go to Aziraphale's bookstore. Aziraphale opened the door and was startled when he saw that man. This man was the archangel Gabriel. When Gabriel saw Aziraphale, he felt like he saw his savior. Gabriel quickly hugged Aziraphale tightly. When everyone around saw him, they couldn't help but admire and gossip. Aziraphale's face changed expression immediately because he was afraid of being hated by others. But Aziraphale could not leave Gabriel alone. So Aziraphale had to take Gabriel into the bookstore to hide temporarily. Gabriel kept saying that they had to prevent something terrible from happening. Aziraphale asked what it was, but Gabriel couldn't remember. Moreover, Gabriel had left the box outside the door. Aziraphale went out to check, and luckily the box was still there. However, when he opened it, it was empty. Aziraphale asked Gabriel over and over again, but he still didn't know why he was here. Aziraphale asked what the box meant, but Gabriel didn't even know his real name. This left Aziraphale helpless. Aziraphale had to give Gabriel another name, Jim, to avoid being noticed by others, because his intuition told Aziraphale that Gabriel might be in danger. Aziraphale only had one friend, the devil of hell, Crowley, so Aziraphale could only call Crowley. When Crowley heard the news, he drove his car to scold Aziraphale. Crowley says Gabriel is not his friend. If Gabriel is in trouble, they should stay away from him. Crowley advises Aziraphale to take Gabriel and throw him away somewhere to avoid being wronged. But Aziraphale was inherently kind, so a conflict arose between the two. Finally, Crowley got angry and decided to break up with Aziraphale. Crowley ran out of the bookstore, trying to suppress his anger until his whole body was covered in smoke. Crowley was driving away when he was suddenly captured by the messenger of hell. She announced that the high-ranking archangel of heaven had disappeared. It was said that this matter was very serious. Heaven also ordered punishment for those who dared to hide Gabriel. They would be erased from the book of life forever. Crowley tried to pretend that he had never heard of this. Crowley also did not know where Gabriel was, but as soon as the messenger left, Crowley immediately went to find Aziraphale. Crowley could not let Aziraphale suffer the punishment alone. Crowley had to use magic to create an illusionary barrier to hide Gabriel from being discovered. At the same time, Crowley told Aziraphale that from now on, he could only call Gabriel by the name Jim. Aziraphale allowed Gabriel to stay as a bookstore assistant. Just as Crowley cast his spell, the heavens received an alarm. They determined that Aziraphale's bookstore emitted a huge amount of magic, so the next day they sent a small team to check it out. Archangel Gabriel now believed he was Jim. He was very enthusiastic as Aziraphale's assistant. Fortunately, thanks to Crowley's magic, they did not realize that Jim was the one they were looking for. Aziraphale had to make an excuse that the record sales girl Maggie was his guest. She was in love with the cafe owner Nina in the store across the street. The magic last night was also performed by Aziraphale himself to connect the love between the two of them. The reason seemed absurd, but was very convincing. Before leaving, they warned Aziraphale that if he knew any news about Gabriel, he must report it immediately. Meanwhile, Aziraphale suddenly heard Gabriel singing a familiar part of a song. However, when Aziraphale asked, Gabriel could not remember what he had just sung. Aziraphale quickly remembered the melody and asked the record seller Maggie. Sure enough, the record Maggie had was the same song Aziraphale heard Gabriel humming earlier. Aziraphale once again brought up the melody. Aziraphale hoped Gabriel would remember something. Suddenly, Gabriel's eyes turned purple, and he mentioned the party with God. It only lasted for a few seconds, but it was enough for Aziraphale to believe that the song was an important clue. Aziraphale saw the book on the shelf, and suddenly remembered the bet between God and Satan thousands of years ago. Crowley was the devil responsible for destroying the lives of many farmers. He did it with the desire to destroy his children. It was exactly the same way he destroyed the sheep on the hillside. Aziraphale faced Jork's 3 children and solemnly announced that they would be destroyed by a demon sent by Satan. However, the children boldly replied that Satan would not dare. Because they were Jork's children, Jork was loved by God. Crowley immediately proved what he said was true. Crowley created a fierce fire that quickly engulfed the entire entire house. Because Crowley had a license, Aziraphale just stood there watching and did not dare to intervene. Suddenly, in a moment of thought, Crowley suddenly destroyed the ground. He let everyone fall into a wine cellar. Aziraphale secretly understood that Crowley still had some conscience. He could not bear to kill the children, so he locked them down here. To avoid the eyes of the angels, Crowley turned Jork's 3 children into 3 colorful geckos. This was true to their wishes. That night there was a violent thunderstorm. Crowley enticed Aziraphale to eat a piece of delicious fresh grilled beef ribs. Aziraphale automatically tasted the first pieces of meat. The delicious feeling made him irresistible. He ate greedily. Soon, he had almost half the cow gone. Now one of them was breaking the rules by eating meat, and the other by violating the permit. Both of them were criminals, so they could not expose each other. They had to join the same side and cover for each other's crimes. The next day after the storm passed, Jork and his wife returned to the house, but they did not see their children. They were extremely worried and scared. At this moment, Gabriel and other angels appeared. They promised to compensate 3 times the total damage that Jork and his wife had suffered. Therefore, the number of sheep would also be tripled. The 3 children would be increased to 7. However, Jork and his wife did not want their children to die. They did not need to be given any new children. They just wanted to have their 3 old children back. If their children really died, they would spend the rest of their lives cursing God. At this moment, Crowley appeared and was introduced by Aziraphale as a human fertility expert. He was a professional and high-class midwife. He would help Jork and his wife give birth right here. Crowley asked the wife to reach into her husband's shirt and pull out 3 ribs. Meanwhile, Aziraphale secretly transformed the 3 lizards back into Jork's children. Jork and his wife were overjoyed to see their children safe and sound. Their family was now reunited as before. However, the other angels had some doubts about how humans gave birth. Gabriel believed it was true because he had witnessed the first birth in the Garden of Eden between Eve and Adam, but then they questioned that these seemed to be Jork's old children, not the new children given by God. If the old child had not died, all the angels would die. Gabriel knew that as an angel they would never be allowed to lie, so Gabriel asked Aziraphale if these were the new children promised by God to Jork. Aziraphale faced pressure from all sides, so he swore as an angel that they were the new children. The Jorks understood Aziraphale's intentions, so they agreed to his words. That was also the moment Aziraphale became a fallen angel. He ate meat, drank alcohol, and even lied to thwart God's will. Back to the present, Aziraphale looked at the record on which an address had been played over and over again. To save time waiting for the train, Aziraphale tried to convince Crowley that the record could help them learn the truth. At the same time, Aziraphale offered to borrow Crowley's car for the party trip. Crowley could not resist Aziraphale's pleas. Therefore, Crowley agreed to stay and guard the bookstore and help Aziraphale watch Gabriel. Unexpectedly, not long after Aziraphale left, a new angel appeared. Muriel was assigned to guard the bookstore and monitor Aziraphale. But because Muriel had not been in the mortal world for long, she could not resist Crowley's cunning, so he tricked her into interviewing the coffee girl Nina. That night, Aziraphale went to the address on the disc and went to a liquor store. Aziraphale showed Gabriel's portrait to the owner. He immediately recognized it and said that Gabriel was also involved in the Freemasons. Aziraphale went out and saw the sign of the store with a picture of the old doctor. He heard the owner say that because of an incident, the doctor did something stupid. To remember the doctor, the owner named the bar after the doctor. When Aziraphale went to the cemetery, he discovered that this was the place he had been to with Crowley. Unexpectedly, this time he came, there appeared a statue with the same face and shape as Gabriel. Aziraphale suddenly remembered the beautiful memories between him and Crowley. That night, the two discovered a girl named Elspeth robbing graves. This was a very evil and terrible thing to do, so Aziraphale advised her to focus on doing good deeds like selling books. However, Elspeth was upset with Aziraphale's advice. She asked if morality could make food. Since Aziraphale wanted to follow the girl, Crowley had no choice but to follow his wishes. The two of them came to a small alley and discovered that in addition to the girl, there was another girl who was very sick. It turned out that they were 2 sisters. The younger sister, in order to make a living, risked her life as a grave robber. They were so poor that they didn't even have a place to live. Their lives consisted of sleeping on the streets, from place to place. There was a doctor who was willing to pay a lot of money for the body. As long as the transaction was successful, she would have money to rent a place to stay and buy some food to survive. Aziraphale still thought this was unethical. When he arrived, it was too late, so the body was already in a jar. The buyer was a doctor who had just become a professor. He was also a lecturer at a famous medical university. He needed a fresh corpse to teach and help his students practice. Seeing that the corpse was no longer suitable for his needs, he refused the transaction. Then he sent the girl away. At this time, Aziraphale and Crowley disguised themselves as two professors to talk to the doctor. Through the conversation, they learned that the reason he hired the girl to rob the grave was because he could not risk going into the cemetery. If caught, this crime would greatly affect his career and reputation. His mission was to maintain the teaching work and train a new generation of doctors to cure diseases. Every year, countless people died from diseases. Without corpses, students could not practice. They could only practice on patients, and that was not okay. This was truly a noble journey to help alleviate human suffering. It seemed that Aziraphale had wrongly blamed Elspeth and the doctor. He decides to make amends by agreeing to help his cousins steal another corpse. He did so they could sell it for money to make a living, also so that medical students could practice. The group moved into the cemetery to continue stealing a newly buried body. However, when opening the coffin lid, the older sister suddenly startled and fell into the electric wire. The sound of the explosion affected everyone. Faced with the dangerous situation, Crowley had to lock them in a deep hole to avoid being discovered. The older sister's health gradually weakened to the point that she could not bear it anymore and died on the spot. Although the body theft failed, the younger sister had another fresh body, which was her older sister's body. Aziraphale and Crowley helped Elspeth transport the body to sell to the doctor. This time, he agreed to pay a very high price. Aziraphale and Crowley did two good things at the same time. It seemed that everything was going well. Unexpectedly, Elspeth was so sad and desperate that she used all her money to buy good wine and poison, and then did something foolish. As soon as Aziraphale and Crowley discovered her crazy intention, they tried to stop her. Crowley even took the initiative to drink the whole bottle of poisoned wine. This action scared Elspeth. The alcohol began to take effect, making Crowley unable to stand. After a while, he started talking nonsense. When Elspeth mentioned doing something stupid, he suddenly became angry. He transformed into a giant to teach the girl a lesson. Of all the sins, doing something stupid is the most serious. Crowley suggested that Aziraphale give Elspeth all the money Aziraphale had. Crowley told Elspeth to use this money to buy a farm and live a good life. Unexpectedly, a good angel, combined with a hellish devil, could do something unexpected. Because the two interfered with human life, they affected the book of life and death. That same night, Crowley was taken back to hell. Right now, right at the cemetery where Aziraphale was standing, two young men suddenly appeared. Aziraphale borrowed their phone and called Crowley to inform him of the news. Aziraphale told him all the information about his investigation. After the call, Aziraphale returned the phone, but now it has turned into a better phone. It was truly miraculous. This surprised the two boys. It was pouring rain at the bookstore. Gabriel suddenly read a mysterious prophecy. The dead would rise and make the living suffer. When Crowley approached, Gabriel returned to his original form. Unexpectedly, the scene had been overheard by the messenger of hell, Tracy. Crowley had been discovered hiding Gabriel in Aziraphale's bookstore. Tracy had witnessed it, but Crowley still tried to deny it. He refused to let her in. She then threatened him to be careful, because the entire force of hell would soon declare war on Aziraphale. It was too late for Crowley to warn Aziraphale. Currently in hell, the dissatisfied devil, Tracy came to Duke Beelzebub to ask for orders to attack Aziraphale's bookstore. Because Tracy knew that it was the place that was hiding the angel Gabriel, they just needed to send troops to capture the angel as a trophy to offer to Satan. With Beelzebub's permission, Tracy immediately went to see the Count. She asked to provide tens of thousands of devils to join the battle. However, human resources were scarce recently, and the number of people going to hell was also less than before, so he could not meet the request. Tracy had to reduce it to 500 devils. However, the final number accepted was 70. Tracy immediately gathered the army of hell. Tracy announced that the purpose of this battle was to attack Aziraphale's bookstore and capture the angel Gabriel. While hell was preparing for the war, Aziraphale was worried about the heart of the cafe owner. Nina had just broken up with her lover, so she was very sad. To cheer Nina up, Aziraphale planned an annual neighborhood meeting. His target audience was only merchants and shopkeepers. Aziraphale Aziraphale even personally went to each house to hand out invitations. He used the benefits that the guests liked to lure them to join the party. Besides, Muriel also returned to report the situation to her superiors. Except for interviewing the love affair between the coffee seller Nina and the disc seller Maggie, there was nothing else. That night, when everyone was happily dancing together, the army of hell appeared and surrounded the house. They asked Aziraphale to quickly hand over Gabriel, otherwise, they would harm everyone here. Jim guessed that they were referring to him, so he voluntarily handed himself over. However, Jim had been enchanted by Crawley before, so no one recognized the fairy aura from him. But Crawley could not enchant in the opposite direction, so he was helpless. Seeing that the enemies seemed fierce, Crawley had to use the law of hell to talk. According to the rules of war, they needed to notify in advance so that Crawley could have time to evacuate the people. Otherwise, Crawley would sue the council that they had arbitrarily sent troops to start a war. The demons were worried after hearing this. They didn't dare to do anything anymore. The commander-in-chief accepted Crawley's request to give humans time to evacuate. This was just a diversion that Crawley suddenly thought of. Crawley quickly ran to find and meet Muriel. Then he tricked her into thinking he was a criminal. He convinced her to take him to heaven. When it was quiet, Crawley sneaked into the secure archives room. Crawley opened a meeting between Gabriel and the other angels. This memory reflected Gabriel's opposition to inciting war between heaven and hell. Immediately after, Gabriel left his clothes and took a box to escape from heaven. The situation below the bookstore was extremely tense. When everyone had evacuated the store, Maggie and Nina insisted on staying to support Aziraphale. No matter what the outcome, they would not regret it. The army of hell began to pour into the bookstore. Aziraphale used the power of the barrier to lure them in. He doesn't care if you're an angel or a devil. If they entered here without thinking, they would be blown to pieces. Aziraphale knew that this plan would not last long. The commander-in-chief soon realized this trap and ordered the soldiers to avoid the ring. Everyone used fire extinguishers as weapons to fight back. Then they used books to throw at them until they were exhausted. Resources were also scarce, and there was no way to retreat. Aziraphale had to resort to the last resort, which could only be used in times of war. He threw the angel ring to the ground. A curious demon touched it and immediately activated the angel light. All the demons around the area were burned to ashes. The signal from the ring spread everywhere. This was heaven's declaration of war against hell. Crawley and the other angels immediately rushed down to the earth. Beelzebub also led demons to the earth to see what was going on. Crawley quickly explained that this was not a declaration of war, because the people of hell had arbitrarily sent troops to attack Aziraphale first. Beelzebub saw Jim, the Duke of Hell and Lord of the Flies, discover a fly in the bookstore and call it over. It was also the fly she had given to Gabriel. Unexpectedly, Gabriel used the fly as a container for his memories. As soon as the fly flew into Gabriel's eyes, the memories in his head were immediately restored. Gabriel had previously had a romantic relationship with the Duke of Hell. The two often secretly dated on Earth. They both had the same ideal, which was not wanting to incite war. They especially did not want heaven and hell to be at war. So the two agreed on a peace treaty that only the two of them knew about. They often went to a bar because that place played the songs they both loved. Their feelings for each other grew deeper and deeper. Gabriel also gave a statue of himself right in the cemetery that Beelzebub ruled. It proves that he is not afraid to put his noble image in a dark place like a cemetery. The two of them openly declared their love in front of angels and demons. This was an unacceptable betrayal for both sides. The two sides argued about who should be captured and punished for a while, but Gabriel interrupted them. In the end, he discovered that it didn't matter which side he was on, because wherever Beelzebub was, that was heaven for him, and the same for Beelzebub. Wherever Gabriel was, that was hell for her. They would choose a faraway and secret planet to live true to themselves. Hell threatened that no matter where they went, they would send soldiers to sweep and hunt them down. Beelzebub challenged them because she knew that hell was currently lacking in personnel. If Beelzebub escaped from hell, there would be a vacant position. That was completely beneficial for Tracy. After Gabriel and Beelzebub disappeared, the archangel wanted to erase the names of those who had helped Gabriel from the list of life. Suddenly, God appeared and ordered them to return to heaven. Muriel was allowed to stay. He gave Aziraphale a cup of coffee. Then he invited Aziraphale to go for a walk to discuss the secret. Crowley waited anxiously. He also came up with a great plan with Aziraphale. The two would go to all the restaurants to enjoy their favorite dishes. Unexpectedly, when Aziraphale returned, he said that he had been chosen by God to be the new high-ranking archangel. Aziraphale would replace Gabriel. At the same time, God also wanted to appoint Crowley to return as an angel. At that time, the relationship between the two would be public without fear of anyone forbidding or threatening them. It turned out that many years ago, Crowley was an angel, but due to Crowley's fall, he was banished to hell to become a devil. Aziraphale advised Crowley that heaven is the side of light. This was a good opportunity for the two. However, Crowley did not want to choose any side, including heaven and hell, because he thought that after what the angels had done, whether he was an angel or a demon, did not say who was good or bad. What he should do was stay away from them. Crowley wanted to be like Gabriel, free to choose his own path. In the end, everyone would have to choose a suitable path. Unfortunately, the path Aziraphale chose did not include Crowley. As soon as Crowley left, God decided to hand over this bookstore to Muriel to manage. Aziraphale had to immediately follow him back to heaven. To take up the position of high-ranking angel leader, Crowley was not in a hurry to leave, but he tried to stay behind to watch Aziraphale's every step. Crowley hoped that Aziraphale would make some changes. However, when Aziraphale saw Crowley standing on the side of the road, he mustered up all his courage and walked straight towards the gates of heaven. Aziraphale proudly walked beside God with a new position. Crowley continued his lonely journey in his beloved car. Crowley didn't choose heaven or hell, he chose Aziraphale. But Aziraphale didn't choose Crowley. Aziraphale chose God. Because God has power and status, God can give Aziraphale any ambition he wants. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again.